So I'm going to talk to you about my journey in tech, and I put there for a reason so far, because I'm still figuring out a lot of things, and I'm going to tell you at the end of this the reason why. But I've been at LinkedIn, as mentioned, over 13 years, and in the industry for 25 years. So I'm going to just talk to you about my journey. Hope you get to learn a little bit about something about me and inspire you. Okay, so let's see. We got this clicker working? No? Okay, already failed. Here we go. Yes. Okay, so I was interested. I'm going to take it back to pretty much your age when I was in high school. I went to Live Oak High School. It's over in Morgan Hill. I was really, really good at math. And one thing I was not good at was like English and some of the other courses, but I had a math teacher that came to me and said, hey, why don't you try coding? And I'm like, what is coding? Never even heard about it. This was what, 92, 91. And he said, hey, why don't you try this programming class called Pascal? None of you probably heard of what Pascal programming, but it was the foundation where you now have Java and C++. But I actually looked online last night and I was able to find the source code in GitHub. This is what Pascal coding looks like, and I created a tic-tac-toe game. The fact that I was able to like build something and have inputs and outputs and winners, this was video games back in my day, a lot different now. But that is when I first got my first little itch that I can build and code, and this was so fun. This is something I created. And it was a wonderful feeling, but something changed. When I was in that classroom, I started looking around, seeing what my classmates were. The assignments got more challenging, and then I realized, wow, I'm struggling. Why isn't anybody else struggling? No one else would talk about it. And then I decided to quit. I was like, hey, I looked around the room. I was the only girl in the classroom, and also didn't feel great. So I quit, and I decided, okay, I'm not quite sure what I want to do. So I graduated high school, and I was the first generation in my family to actually go to college. All I knew was that I had to go to college. So I figured, okay, I have no idea what I want to do. Does any of you guys know what you want to do? Raise your hand if you know what you want to do. Okay, maybe a couple of you. Good for you. I had no clue, and I'm still figuring out, even at my age, but it's all about an experiment. But what I did do is I decided I need to work, because I needed to have money to get myself through school, and I need to get a job. So I went to De Anza, I went to West Valley College, I went to junior college to save money and figure things out, and I worked at a company, Farmers Insurance, just doing paperwork, and then just trying to have a life at the same time. And that balance, now looking back, it taught me a lot of grit and tenacity, and also how to hustle. But in that moment, I didn't know that was actually what was happening. But it was hard. It was really, really hard work. But then when I realized, it was interesting, I was working at this company, Farmers Insurance, and they said, hey, go to this tech company. We need to have him sign some insurance papers. I'm like, okay, sure. I go over there. I wind up sitting in his office, signing papers, and he said, hey, what do you want to do? Again, someone asking me what I want to do. I have no idea. And he said, I said, I thought about programming one time, many years ago, maybe about 2-3 years ago. And he said, well, what we do is we do printed boards, circuit board manufacturing on prototype boards. It's more hardware engineering. Why don't you come and just like work here and check it out? He offered me $1 more an hour, so I said, okay, fine. I quit my job. I'm going to go work for this guy. So I worked at the front desk for a little bit, and then all of a sudden I started talking to the engineers. They started saying, hey, we need to build this board, and we need these bill of materials, and they called bombs then, but it's like capacitors, resistors, memory chips. Do you want to help get the order together? So I just started learning at the front desk of that job. Just started learning, and then slowly I got back in to where they were connecting all the circuits, and I just watched them behind their, just looking at what they're doing. And they said, why don't you go in the clean room? So I felt really cool. I got to put on a white coat, felt like a doctor, and go in the clean room and just start seeing how people were testing all this stuff. And then that's when the spark happened again. Again, it was just like that moment where someone introduced me to something that I'd never learned before, and I started being curious. And so with those guys, they basically had said, I'm going to go back. Sorry. Happy fingers. So I started finishing, so I went to West Valley, and then I went to De Anza, and I was like finishing 2 years, and I was like, I need to go get my 4-year degree. So I went and walked the halls of San Jose State. I walked the halls of San Jose State. I had, again, no idea what I wanted to do, and one thing that I saw was the Society of Women Engineers. It was a plaque in the hallway, and it was that moment where, hey, maybe this is a sense of belonging. Maybe this is something I could be part of. That was the only way I chose my major, is just because I felt like I belonged in that moment. So I applied, I got accepted, and then those, that club, even Society of Engineers, some of the male allies that I've had, we still talk today, and that's the only way I was able to get through college. But it took me 7 years to graduate. 7 years. It took me a long, long time. I was working the whole time, but I did it, and I became one of the first people in my family to graduate from college. But what happened is after I graduated, guess what you want to do? You want to get a job. Interviewing for a job is a skill. I went after multiple job interviews and failed. And so I want to show you this. Anybody, this is back what websites, search engines look like back in the day. You all have Google now, but this is a whole bunch of search engines would pop up, Excite, Lycos, Ask Jeeves. It kind of reminds me of ChatGPT now, the way they ask questions. And this was the .com days. It was the year 2000 when I had graduated. And I went and tried to get a job, and the skills changed on me. And this is what they were hiring for. So what did I have to do? I had to learn. I spent time learning how to code, web pages, HTML, put something together, and we didn't have the tools that we have today, how to do everything from scratch. So I built probably the crappiest thing you would ever seen on a website, not great at all, and I showed what I built, and I went to a job interview, and they said, you got the job. And that's what I ended up doing for several years, is working on discussion boards. And now it was interesting, Lycos actually exists still. I was searching online, but in the .com days, they sold for $216 billion, and they recently sold for like $36 million. It's just amazing how things change and so quickly. So after I got that job, then another thing happened. I started getting good at what I was doing. So I went to my boss and I said, hey, can I do a project all by myself? And he's like, sure, why don't you do it? Go for it. You never do anything by yourself, but it was more like I get to own this project. So I had to work on this project, getting stats on the server for a board meeting he had. And I started coding away. It took me 2 weeks to do this project. And back then, you also didn't have a ton of disk space. So anybody know what sudo rm minus rf means? Yeah, it ain't good. It ain't good at all. Don't ever try this at home or on your operating system. So I basically wanted to delete some of my space so I can have more space to operate, and I deleted all my code for a project that was about to be done, needed to be done in 2 days. I asked my friends, I'm like, hey, can we get this, can we get my code anywhere? And it was gone. I was like, how am I I'm gonna total failure, I'm gonna get fired and such. I went to my boss and I said, hey, that project that you want done, guess what? I deleted the code, it's not gonna be ready. And he looked at me with utter disappointment. I remember it was in San Francisco, halls were dark. I just cried and wanted to literally almost crawl underneath his desk. But I looked at him and I said, guess what? I'll get it done in 2 days. And he looked at me like, you're freaking crazy. And I said, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I stayed up all night for 2 days. But one thing that happened is code, it stays in your memory. You actually can write it better the second time with less bugs. And I was able to commit and do it. And that was a moment that he never forgot that I recovered after an utter failure, and also my colleagues. So I was able to do it. But now what I appreciate, I also found this picture online, the black one, they now give you a warning on if you ever try and do it, so pay attention to those warnings. Don't do that, what I did. And so then after that, the guy that I worked for, he started a company called Good Technology. And he said, hey, Erica, do you want to come and work with me? And I'm thinking, hey, me, remember the one that actually failed? You really want me on your team? And he said, yes, the way that you recovered, everything, you're like, I want you on the team. So at this time, this was probably about 2006 or so. And these are mobile devices, these smartphones, when they started coming out, we call them QWERTY devices because you can type with your thumbs on the keyboard. But it was these black and white BlackBerry devices, Palm Trio. This was the new era of mobile. And if you can put email, calendar, contacts on a mobile device, it was revolutionary at the time. And this is, again, I never went to school for this. I was like, I had to learn all of this. And how do I get stuff from like Microsoft Exchange servers and get that data onto a device in the cloud in a secure way? All of us had to learn in that moment. So I wound up being at that company for 9 years. And that's when I went from an individual contributor to management. But this is, again, a moment, like I would have never foreseen that I had to do this. I never would foresee that I would have this opportunity. I never thought I would have to learn this. And then, what brought me to LinkedIn? So I was at that company for 9 years. I started getting an itch. I get very stagnant. I get very bored if I'm kind of doing the same thing. And LinkedIn was growing. Again, a new time where social networking was just going crazy. It was 2010. And they said, hey, we need to grow the network. Do you know anybody that knows how to sync contact information so you can connect people and get them onto the platform? And I was like, I had experience on mobile devices to actually do just that. So it was a consultation that turned into an interview, and I said, yes, I want to work here. And this was before, LinkedIn's almost about 1 billion users. This was around 150 million, when this is a picture that we took with the team at 200 million. So what then happened at LinkedIn, I've been there now for 13 years, I started looking around. I was now a leader. I joined as a senior manager, took a different title when I transferred over. But I started looking at the teams. I said, who's building all this stuff? And if you look at the global population, 50% of the world are men and 50% of the world are women. And then you look at who's building technology, and I look around, it's only a handful of us. That doesn't seem right. So then I started thinking, hey, I can actually do something. I'm in a leadership position. I get to hire talent. Let's make sure that there's a little bit more equity. It's a little bit more balanced. And I started Women in Tech at LinkedIn, and then I had a whole bunch of allies working closely with me as well, and we all wanted to change the way we built products. And we wanted to change the way we had different perspectives. And then I started getting into public speaking. I started talking about it. I started creating a community internal into the company. And so these were just some of the events that I had happened to be at or created myself. You see Sheryl Sandberg, she came to LinkedIn. It was when her Lean In book had come out. I had also just had 2 kids. I was like, how do I balance kids? How do I balance a job? How do I figure all this out? And then just realizing when I looked around, there were so many people that were struggling just the same. And so we need a community to talk about this. So that was when I started just exposing myself and really wanting to pay it forward and see if I can just help others in that moment. And then one morning, I woke up to my email, and San Jose State sent me an email. And they said, hey, would you like to do the commencement speech for all of engineering at San Jose State? My stomach just dropped because I've never spoken to that many people in my life. And the second thing that I thought of was like, geez, did you look up my grades? Because I wasn't really good. I think I barely passed in some ways and majored in computer engineering. And I just said yes. I go, I'll figure it out. Again, something else I've never done before, but you figure it out and you learn in that moment. And of course, if you ever look back and you want to look at that speech, I definitely made mistakes. It happens, but it was something I'm super proud of and honored. And now I'm on their Innovation Advisory Board. I'm part of their Women in Tech Conference, and also lead that as well. So what's next? We've been in this industry. I've seen different things. I've seen the dot-com days, the mobile era. What is now next in this evolution of tech? And how many guys have heard of generative AI? I don't think any of you guys have not heard of generative AI. Everybody? Yes? Probably heard it till you're blue in the face in some of this. But one thing that I also want you to know is that LinkedIn's economic graph. If you're not on LinkedIn, you need to be on LinkedIn. There's going to be a workshop that I worked with some of the folks at LinkedIn. They're going to have a session tomorrow. But basically what we have on LinkedIn is we have almost 1 billion members. We have 58 million companies, 15 job postings that are there, 38,000 skills, and 120,000 schools, all on LinkedIn. So what do you get to do with this data? You get to have so many insights about how the world is changing, what is needed, how you show up on this platform as well. And so we're able to get some insights on the economic graph across the world. So one thing that we all know is there's job postings on LinkedIn. So we know that 75% of new jobs require a degree. Now that's in all industries. But within tech, it's a little bit different. We're seeing a little bit more of a mind shift. We're seeing that skills matter most. It's not about the pedigree of school you went to. It's not necessarily the degree. It's about what skills you have to do the job. I just talked to you about some of my jobs that I've had in the past. I didn't have those skills when I went to college. I had a foundation, but I didn't have those skills. And so when you think about it, skills are evolving. We have stats that about 25 of the skills required for the job has changed over time. Even if you don't change your job is changing on you. You really don't have a choice. You have to stay with the times. And so that brings me to generative AI. Now, generative AI is changing the way we work. It's a new skill. It's something that we're all learning about. And if you look at some of these stats, even like 25% since April that were found on LinkedIn that people are posting about generative AI or prompts and things like that, 75% of people just adding this skill to their profile has increased in a very, very short period of time. About 15x since January to June. It's massively changing, and it's changing fast. So, have you guys played with ChatGPT 3 or anything? So okay, good. There's a QR code here. You can go to bar.google.com, take a picture of this on your phone. Just try it out. There's different types of ChatGPT. There's text generation. There's image generation. There's you can even have code, music generation, all these different things. So I was just playing around last night. Write a poem about a robot falling in love with a human. Able to do this in a couple seconds. Get help. It's not about replacing you doing this all on your own. It's about a tool to enhance your creativity and work with it together. On maybe a paper that you have to write and you get inspired. Other things, here's a picture of my 2 dogs. I used another platform online. If you look up on the internet, you'll see so many AI companies popping up. Everybody's trying to do something new right now. So again, QR code, this is another site you can play with that I was playing with last night. Take the picture. Something like this would have taken a lot of editing time. Someone with a skill as a designer to do this. This was done within minutes and have a different view. The other thing, I played with this one. This one's actually my friend's company, so please, if anything, take a picture of this. It's a startup that she's working on. It's called Virtualness. Download the app, give her 5 stars or something, but I basically created a thing where I said a dog and a cat in a space with a rainbow, done in seconds. These are the images that you can create that would take, again, a lot longer to do. So this would be image generation. So another thing that this graph, so this is from LinkedIn data again. So this is about the AI skill index over on the left side, and this is how it's changed over time. This graph, all of these pictures, it's hard to see, but it's across the globe, every single country. This is how the graph is changing where people are talking about AI skills. And in fact, even execs, 51% of US execs are excited about AI. But guess what? They don't know how to leverage it yet. We're all figuring it out right now. Even in LinkedIn, we changed our entire roadmap and we're using generative AI to change experiences in our product. But it's not just about adding just a generative AI feature and just adding it there. It has to be useful. It has to be efficient. It has to improve productivity. It has to create value. So we're all trying to figure it out together. And then another one, this is AI skill index across professionals, different industries. So you have consumer, education, financial service, retail, tech, everything. All industries are starting to use AI. And it's like if you're not in it and you're not trying to figure it out, then you're going to fall behind. So but what's also interesting is these are new roles that are being created and there's no degrees for them yet. So what do you have to do? You have to learn as you go. We're all learning right now. So I'm done. I ended quickly, but this is a picture of me last weekend. So my son, he goes to Los Gatos High. My daughter's over at Saratoga High. And I went dirt bike riding in Hollister Hills for the first time, and this is me crashing. That's not really how your bike is obviously supposed to be. But what I've learned is even in this moment, it's about learning a new skill. It's about, hey, I'm going to challenge myself. I've never done this before. I'm going to try it. It's about being curious, about having curiosity, and sometimes you need to just ride through it and feel it. And I'll be honest, like right now, it's like, oh, you're up here, you're talking, been in the industry. It's like, yeah. I am curious. I am actually in a moment in my career where I'm deciding to quit LinkedIn. I'm going to quit my job. My son's like, are you going to tell everybody to quit your job? It's like, yeah. You know what, because I've been doing it for a long time. I'm curious to try something new. I want to reinvent myself. I want to try something new, and I want to learn. So I think all of the times, like everybody, you don't have to have this perfect path. What you want to do now, what you want to do tomorrow, it's going to change as you learn, as you experience new things that excite you, give you passion, the reason why you're having purpose in life. So I just want to make sure that all of you think about always be learning. You're going to fail. It's going to be normal. It's going to be okay. But never stop learning. And we're all in this together. But anyways, thank you for having me. And follow me on LinkedIn. Hopefully you create your profile. Just follow me, and then you can see what I'm doing next. I'm not sure either. So that's it. And then if someone can ask questions, that'd be great.
Hi.
Hey.
So I have a question regarding the viability of AI as an industry. I mean, through the past years, there's been a lot of things that people have claimed are the newest innovation in tech and marketing, like NFTs are an example. Those completely busted out. Do you think that AI is truly the viable future of technology, or is it a chance that it'll also simmer out in a similar way?
You're asking a very, very great question. So there's a lot of skepticism on AI. But you know, I want to also remind folks that AI has been around for a really, really long time. This is not just like a new thing. Generative AI is actually just making those tasks more efficient. So I believe the way we use it, we have to be careful, number one, and make sure that it's safe and we're doing the right thing. But second of all, I know that it's working because we're already seeing stats. Like for instance, this may be a boring use case for some of you, but if you think about on LinkedIn where we have a whole bunch of customers that create a job post, those are mundane tasks. Let me create a job post for a software engineer at this company. How many people are doing that across all those 51 million companies? You know what, we have the data and we can generate it for you where 80% of the work is done, and then you create your custom twist on it for the remaining 20%. So I think if you use it correctly, you'll actually make things more efficient. I mean, I was even at a talk recently where people thought, you know, the calculator, oh my gosh, you know, when the calculator came out and everybody started using it, like, oh my gosh, people need to do math by hand. It's about actually acceleration of the human task and making things easier and faster and more innovation. So I do believe that it's going to serve its purpose, and we just have to be responsible with it. But yeah, great question.
What do you think the most rewarding part about like your life experience so far is? Or your job?
Yeah, you know what, it's gone in waves, but I would say the most valuable part of my job is actually the community and human connection of people that I get to actually build and create with. It's the people. I mean, I can do a lot of different things, but for me, who I'm doing it with and growing talent. So being in this industry where I now can actually help people grow. I was actually just talking to a colleague of mine the other day, and we were, you know, together in the early days of LinkedIn, and like, why was that so special? Why is it, you know, maybe a little bit different than, you know, what our jobs are today because we're working at different companies, is because it was so new. It was something we all never did before, and we were all figuring it out together, and we were all open to each other's ideas. And so I think building and creating with a team is really what it comes down to. So that is what is probably one of the most enjoyable things. And then having impact in the company. And like Women in Tech didn't, I started that. We were less than 5% women in tech, and now we're up to 25%. So it's like I know I impacted and changed those numbers, and it's a better place to work, and it's a better place to build products. Great question.
Hi. So, as we evolve through technology and innovation, also the usage of artificial intelligence, can this also be very beneficial for first-generation families as well as those who are non-graduate students?
So you're saying for different generations that it didn't go to college. So
Yeah.
like different an age group of say your parents or something, or
Yeah, like can this also be very useful for them to have like a successful future and also plan ahead?
Yeah. I think I guess the thing is I never put age on anything. I think it's just in a moment if you want to. I mean, I think what it does allow people to do is think about the tasks that you do every single day. And maybe some folks are in a particular job, and they're like, wow, this could be automated. This is a mundane task. This is something that we can actually build a tool around. So I think if we all think about what those efficient use cases are, I think it can change a lot of different jobs. And we've seen that with technology in a lot of different ways. I mean, even the fact that we have a mobile phone and we have something in the palm of our hands, that's not how I grew up. I grew up with pagers. You can do much with it. It's all about efficiency, and you get to do things. And so I think it creates a capability of new jobs for new people. And being able to, another study that we have is even with all this technology, people get scared of like, oh, are we going to lose jobs? Are things going to change? Yes, it's something we should be careful about, but if anything, they're saying that soft skills are probably one of the most important skills that you need to have. So then you can focus on the more interesting human connection that you have, and that's where you should spend most of your time. For instance, on our platform, LinkedIn, people look at all, billion members on the platform, recruiters, and they send all these messages trying to hire you, do all these things. You can have all those tasks automated, and the real interesting conversations are the one-on-one conversations you have to tell you about your interests. What is the company doing? Is this a good match? Spend more time on the authentic communication that is required rather than these other things. So yes, I think that there's definitely a possibility. You just got to put our thinking caps on and figure it out, and think differently.
Were there ever moments where you felt overloaded with work or with your life, and how did you deal with that?
Hell yeah, all the time. I'll be honest. Today was a hard day. You're up here for, 20 minutes, 30 minutes doing a talk. I was up till 2 in the morning because I was late trying to put a presentation together for you guys, because I wanted to do good. So I spent till 2 in the morning. I didn't have time to run through the slides until this morning. And then guess what? I get a call. My son, he likes to ride his motorcycle. He got in an accident. That's pretty scary. As a parent, it's like, hey, is he okay? Yes, he's okay. We're all rushing around to go to school. People's not looking. They're looking at their devices on their phone, and someone just sideswiped him. He got a couple bruises. Everything's fine. Tow truck. But I had no time to prepare. So yeah, was life overwhelming today? Life was really overwhelming. Came back, got a tow truck, got everything figured out. His bike is totaled. Have to take it to the shop. But he's fine, and that's all that matters. But yeah, then I'm still here. So yes, sometimes you have to make choices. And it's like, hey, am I going to be able to still come today? It was a question. But then you're able to figure out or not. And if you can't, then when things do get crazy, and I've had many incidents happen in my life where things are just too much, and I won't be able to make it that day. And you just set expectations. The biggest thing that I think you need to do is tell somebody. Because what happens if you just keep it all inside and just try and figure it out, it bottles up and then eventually explode, and you actually would be surprised that people actually want to help you in that moment. There's times that I've been overwhelmed with work, and we had a site issue, the site's down, and I'm supposed to go, to some event that was really important, like a graduation, and it's like, not everybody else had to go to an event, but they would be there if I told them, right? And they would show up, and they'd be able to support me in that moment. So I think it's in those times that you kind of have to say, be a little vulnerable and tell people what's going on in your life. You don't have to tell a whole stage, maybe like I just did right now. but it's okay. And then you'll be surprised. People really want to help you. So it happens all the time. Still does. Thank you. Good question.
How does LinkedIn manage safety with AI? I get how the goal is to go fast, rapidly developing, getting efficient, but has there ever been a moment where you look at it and see, is this safe? Is this ethical? Or has that ever been a thing?
You're brilliant. That's the most important question. And we actually have a whole post on LinkedIn about responsible AI. So I would say what we used to do more so is that we ramp a feature and we ramp it really fast. When I say ramp, it's basically what that means is, hey, go to 5% of the population, 10%, 100%. With AI, you're going to go slower. Because basically you don't know what the artifacts are. Think about it, you're using this new technology. If you're learning about it, you learn about hallucinations. What kind of response do I get back? Is it safe? Is it creating the right outcome? Imagine, I'll give a LinkedIn example, where you're a recruiter and you're looking to hire someone. And then all of a sudden, if you get results that are biased to a certain population, you just cut out the rest of the population that has equal opportunity for that job. And is it based on the skills? So we have guardrails that will make sure that all these outcomes are doing okay. And those are things that we'll put in place to make sure that equity happens. So if anything, even though AI is going fast, we got to slow it down and launch slowly, get feedback. And if you'll notice, we had some posts that we'll ask for feedback, thumbs up, thumbs down, did we get it right or not? And then we're constantly assessing. And we're like, oh, nope, we got it wrong, we got to roll this back. So yes, you're going to be doing a lot of that. You got to pay attention to the metrics. One thing that you have to do in technology and software, if you can't measure it, you can't fix it. That means if you're not measuring and monitoring the right things are going to be broken and you don't even know they're broken. So again, if you're not measuring it, if you can't measure it, you can't fix it. So you got to make sure you do that in tech. Good question. And there's a whole paper that, if you're curious, you can look at LinkedIn, Responsible AI, do a search, and you'll find it.
Oh,
Hey.
why do you think that the tech industry is so male-dominated?
I don't know. You tell me. I think, look, the only thing that, there's a lot of speculation out there. I can tell you how I felt, right? I think it comes down to even simple things that you're exposed to as a child, right? My dad He had 3 girls, and he basically, I was his tool woman, and he'd teach me stuff. He knew stuff about electrical engineering, and so he taught me at a really young age to be curious. So I think it matters what you're exposed to. If you're not exposed to it, then maybe you would have never even thought about it. I think there's also, in my case, teachers. Teachers matter. They tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, you should be looking at this and be curious. I think it matters who's in those roles. If you don't see people in the roles, you don't see it, you don't think you can be it. So there's so many elements of why. And then I think there's another thing. Yes, we have, when you have children, a lot of them get out of tech. Yes, we have some stay-at-home dads, but majority of the household and children are on mothers, so daycare is an issue as well. I'll be honest, when I had kids for the first time, I thought about quitting. My husband's like, are you crazy? You worked so hard to get here. Why did you do that? You felt guilty. You felt all these things, like how are we going to do it? It costs money, da-da-da-da-da. And so you have to push forward. So I think it's changing, but I'll be honest, there's also, there's not a lot of supportive environments out there. So I think so I'm very choosy who I work with, where I work, and if it doesn't support that, then it doesn't matter. I think COVID actually helped us in some ways for flexible work. So having that flexibility and being able to work from home, remote, but not all industries are like that, that also helps. But it's so systemic and it's so deep. And then there's biases. I can answer that question maybe all day long. Good question. Thank you.